Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
It's my favorite topic. It gets me up early without even a pressure. So I am an amateur mycologist, so that means I'm just a fanatic and I study like crazy, but I don't have any real formal training. Dr. Orson K. Miller taught mycology at Virginia Technical Institute for 30-some years, and he retired here in McCall. So the Idaho Mushroom Club, which is based in Boise, always comes to McCall twice a year for our forays in June and September, because mushrooms basically have two fruiting seasons, June and September. Of course, it varies according to the weather and all that, but basically. And we've had the very great luck of having him attend all of our mushroom meetings and really teach us a lot. And he gave a months-long class at the biological station at Flathead Lake. No, 18 years ago or something. I took the months-long class, and that whetted my appetite so that I've become a fanatic now. So I'm not going to be able to answer all your questions, but I study them like crazy, and I love them all, not just the edible ones. So we're just going to, oh, and how do I advance this thing? From one slide to another.
Oh, let's get
The arrow?
Oh, I put the mouse out,
Oh.
sorry, but I think it's working,
A wireless mouse?
yeah.
Oops. Wrong one.
But do you just hit the arrow key on the keyboard? Or
I just go like that? Well, why don't I try it?
No. hold on.
Hey!
Yeah.
That works.
Oh, okay.
Okay, I'll just do that.
Well, I hit this at the same time. So
Okay.
Hoping.
Well, anyway, we're just going to give you some mushroom facts, just some fun kind of things. Perfect.
Ah, that's what it is. I have to roll this.
Oh, that sounds too complicated.
Forward or back?
So maybe I better stick to the,
Ah, now we're in the middle. There we go.
okay.
That's the right one? There we go.
Yeah, that's perfect. Now, all this stuff is written down so you don't have to take notes like crazy, so, but it's just kind of fun. So mycology is the study of fungi. Mycophagist is definitely me. I love to eat them, but I also, you know, when I first took these mushroom classes, I learned the deadly ones first, which I think is a very good idea. Microphobia, I think a lot of people in America are phobic of mushrooms, and they should be, because you make a mistake and they will kill you. So it's not just they make you sick or something like that. So it is a good thing to know. And mushrooms now have their own kingdom, which is fabulous. You know, it used to be just plants and animals. Now there's all kinds of kingdoms, but mushrooms have their own kingdom. And they include all kinds of stuff, you know, tree diseases and root diseases of trees, not just the mushroom that you see, but mildews and yeast and rust, they're all in the kingdom of fungi. And there are so many mushrooms. They think there's over 1 million worldwide, and like 10% are named. So when I was going through Dr. Miller's slides the other day, I kept asking Hope, gee, you know, what's this one? She goes, well, he just named it. So you kind of never know what they are, so it's not an easy thing. And I'm just going to talk about good morning.
Oh, she got it.
Talk about the guild mushrooms today. And like I said before, there's basically two fruiting seasons for mushrooms. Basically, in the spring, and morels occur only in the spring, and chanterelles occur only in the fall. Again, this stuff should all be written down for you. And my mushroom club in Boise always comes to McCall for mushrooms for a very good reason. Because McCall is an incredibly diverse place for trees. And mushrooms, many, many mushrooms, the largest percentage of mushrooms are mycorrhizal with trees. So because of the diversity of trees, we have so many more mushrooms here. So we always come up and rent Quaker Hill church camp, and there's about 30 of us, and we just go out into the woods for all day, 9 to 3, and get mushrooms. Then we spend all night identifying them, which is what I like to do. So, you know, and you don't have to be a member, anybody can come. It's gonna be July 30th or something, or May 30th, 29th through 31st. So the president of our club will put it in the paper, I'm sure. But anyway, you're more than welcome to come to that. That's when you really get into the nitty gritty, and that's kind of how I started learning. So mushrooms have trace amounts of various minerals, and they're mostly water. And people always ask me, like, if I pick all the morels, will I do any damage? Or if I pick things, will I do any damage to anything? And definitely not, because the main part of the mushroom was underground. The mycelium, which is their little root system, they look like threads, and you've seen them when you break trees apart or see an old dead tree or something. You'll see these white threads. That's the rootlets of the mushroom, and it's called mycelium. And like I said, there are about 1 million mushrooms worldwide. 50% are inedible. Now, inedible just means, you know, they're hard as a rock, like the conchs you see on trees and stuff like that. You wouldn't want, or they're so tiny, why bother? 25% you can eat, but, you know, why bother? And then there's a lot of difference between poisonous and deadly. So a lot of mushrooms are poisonous. They make you sick, nausea, vomiting, and diarrhea. So that's probably the most common thing that happens a lot. And 4%, and I don't know if these percentages are exactly right, it's just kind of my experience. And 4% are really good to eat, and then it's the 1% that can kill you, but they kill you. So, good to know them. And this is the last page on your little thingamajig, your handout. So the terms on mushrooms, a lot of times people will email a picture of a mushroom to me. Somebody just did that yesterday, as a matter of fact. But you gotta turn upside down. I gotta see what's underneath. It's real important to tell, is it gills underneath? Is it pores underneath? Is it spines? Is it folds? Is it flat? You know, so when you look at a mushroom, you need to really look at the whole thing. So just for later, when we start identifying mushrooms, just so you get familiar with the terms, the cap, and this is the stipe, or stalk or stem, I call it a stipe. And whether it has a ring or not, or an annulus, or whether it has a cup or a vulva is exceedingly important. And this is the mycelium. This is this little root system that goes deep into the ground and actually combines with tree roots, and I'll talk about that in a little bit. But the deadly Amanita genus, and there are a couple that people eat, but I don't eat any of them. But basically, it's the deadly genus. And these characteristics are very important in identifying the Amanitas. So if you don't get anything else out of this class, hopefully you'll be able to identify the deadly ones before you leave today. What happens is this cup or vulva, this mushroom when it's a baby looks like an egg and it's all enclosed. This is called a universal veil. It's got like a covering of tissue over the entire mushroom. And then when it breaks, and as the stipe starts to grow, then it breaks and the mushroom grows, and then the cap expands. And when the cap expands, it leaves this ring, which is a remnant of this tissue around it. And it always has this cup or vulva at the base. Only the deadly mushrooms have this. There's one other species, but we'll talk about that later. So it's so important when you collect mushrooms for identification that you dig it out of the ground completely. I use one of those garden tools to pop it out, because a lot of people use knives, and if you cut off the bottom, you have a lot of staining characteristics you miss, or you'll miss this cup of tissue, the vulva on the base of the mushroom, which is critical. So those are just some of the terms we'll be talking about. Now this is a Boletus edulis. This is, you know, probably the best mushroom in the world to eat. Edulis, edible, good, it's wonderful. I found them in little buttons right next to a button of a deadly Amanita. My husband and I were hunting Boletus edulis last year, and we picked all these buttons, and I'm home and I'm cutting them in half, and I go, whoa, cut this one in half, and you can see the mushroom inside. You know, whereas the Boletus edulis, It's just plain flat, just straight mushroom texture. But anyway, these are fabulous, and they're all over the place here. So Boletus edulis is called different things in different parts of the world. And they can be any size, and that one was 7 pounds. So, you know, you never know. But anyway, they're fabulous.
Where did you guys find that one?
That one I found in Germania Creek in the White Clouds, because I used to live over in the Sawtooth Mountains. So, but you can find them big too, big, little, whatever, they're
I've
fabulous.
seen them up in your basin, close to that size, maybe not a 7-pounder, but big ones.
Yeah. And another thing, if you wanted to just look, what we do with our mushroom club from Boise, on, well, probably Saturday night would be the best, whatever that is, May 30 or whatever. We have huge tables that we set out, and we put all the mushrooms that we find, and then we classify them according to family, genus, and species. So if you weren't interested in, you know, coming to the whole thing, just as a person of the public of interest, just drop in, you know, about 6 or 7 o'clock. 6 o'clock would be perfect, because 7 usually have a program and 5 we eat. So 6 o'clock on Saturday at Quaker Hill, right up here, just at the top building, and then we have all these mushrooms spread out, and I'd be happy to show them to you. So anyway, you're welcome. So like any plant or anything, they have the same classification, how to name a mushroom. So I'm not going to go through that. You guys know all that stuff. So now note under this Boletus edulis, it's got the pores underneath. It kind of looks like a sponge instead of the gills like you see in the grocery store. I mean, there's mushrooms that have lots of different spore-bearing surfaces. And the pores, they, instead of seeds like a plant, they have a spore, which they're microscopic. You cannot see them. They're microns long, but they exude thousands, so that on a piece of paper, if you did a spore print, you would see a color. But the spores are produced out of those little pores. Now people talk about, even people in my mushroom club, I mean, I read all the literature and stuff because I'm a fanatic on this stuff, but not everybody does. But people have been eating Gyromitra, and I don't remember what the brains. I don't really try to remember common names, because the brain in Idaho is different than North Carolina, so I just know their scientific names. But a lot of people have eaten Gyromitras for years and years and years, and there's just recent literature out that has, they have monomethylhydrazine in them, but if you cook them, it evaporates, and that's, people have eaten them for 20 years, and then the 21st year they die, because this apparently is, you know, because people in my club go, Kathy, I've eaten this for 15 years. And I go, yes, but you could develop, you know, the toxins build up like mercury does. It doesn't break down in your body. It constantly builds up. So there becomes a point where you're going to be pushing your luck. So I don't eat them. And how you can tell a difference between a false morel and a true morel, and I never have taken a slide with one cut in half, but morels are always hollow, and Gyromitras are stuffed. You know, they're just like packed full of tissue that's all wound around and stuff. So anyway, for those that have been eating the brains, I would advise you to not do it anymore. Now, rules for eating wild fungi. You gotta know what it is. You can't guess. You have to positively identify it. If you don't know, throw it away. And eat only cooked mushrooms, because there's a lot of things in mushrooms, and some people in my club don't even eat the little tiny store-bought guy without cooking it. You know, that's up to you, but cooking breaks down all kinds of potential problems, the substances in a mushroom. So, and only eat a small amount, so that if you do get sick, you can give it to somebody to identify it. And because the treatments for all these different poisonings, because there's lots of different poisonings, So the treatments are different. You need to know which one you're eating. And it just like any other food stuff. You only eat specimens that are fresh. You're not gonna wanna eat something that's moldy or taken over by something else. And only eat one new mushroom at a time so that if you do get sick, you'll know which one caused it. Now the role of fungi in nature is threefold. Saprophytic, which their nature's recyclers, they're fabulous. They break down dead organic material. So you'll see them on leaves and chips and pine cones. And I was interested in your tree class when you were telling me about what classes you taught here. Because a lot of mushrooms that grow on pine cones, they're specific to that tree. So that if you find a mushroom growing on a pine cone, it depends on what tree it comes from, what species it is. So now I gotta work on my trees so I can understand that. And parasitic, there are a few, but they're definitely parasitic fungi that, you know, the corn that blights that for elm trees and apple orchards and stuff. There are mushrooms that are parasitic and it kill the trees, but a very small percentage. Now most mushrooms are mycorrhizal, and this is just a fabulous system where their mycelium, or the rootlets and the rootlets of the tree, actually fuse together and they transfer nutrients to each other, because the mushroom on one hand transfers to the tree actually antibiotics, certain antibiotics, growth hormones, water, potassium, calcium, phosphorus, and all kinds of stuff the mushroom rootlets transfers to the tree out of the soil. And the mushroom, since it doesn't have chlorophyll, it has no way to make the fruiting body, which we call a mushroom above ground, so the tree transfers the sugars to the mushroom and the carbohydrates needed so that it can make the fruiting body that we see above ground. And actually, they've also just discovered that they think up to 90% of plants, and it may be more than that, have this relationship with the mycelium underground, but it never produces a mushroom. So this transfer of nutrients is going on underground with plants as well. So it's really, I mean, it's just fabulous. You know, we're just learning all these things about mushrooms and how important they are in the environment. So that's how important this symbiotic relationship is with the mushroom with the tree. And that's why we come to McCall, because there's so many different trees. You know, Douglas fir has a couple hundred species that are associated with it, larch one. So it just depends on the tree species. And it's such a diverse area up here that, you know, my club has been in existence for almost 30 years. And over those 28 years or whatever, just in McCall alone, they've identified over 2,600 species. So that's pretty amazing, really. And that's what's fun about going to different places, because you have different trees, you have different soil types, and you're going to have different mushrooms. Europe has different mushrooms than we do. Korea, Australia, it depends on, you know, what their habitat is, but they're fabulous things. They do more for us than we think. Now, you've heard about the world's largest organism. Everybody thinks it's a blue whale. Well, this mushroom, Armillaria stoya, covers 2,000 acres. Now that's underground. That's not a mushroom that's 2,000 acres. But that underground mycelium is over 2,000 acres. So they can grow huge. Anyway. And marasmius, now I don't know if you can see this or not, but a lot of times mushrooms grow in fairy rings. Have you heard about that? It's kind of a cute thing. Well, you can actually see that here's the mushroom here. And if you look closely, you can see that the grass that's where the mushroom is, it's darker green because of this transfer of nutrients again, and it's a little bit taller. So if in your yard you see mushrooms, just notice that. Just, you know, that transfer of nutrients is going on. And these are very good to eat. Marasmius, so they mushrooms, you find them in all kinds of stuff and in all kinds of places. Deadwood, pine cones, leaf litter, on moss, dead or live trees, on dung, growing on other mushrooms. Most grow on the ground or are associated with trees. But in the trough,